Corporal Reginald Hale lay flat under a canvas sunshield at 0400 on October 23, 1942, 30 kilometers south of El Alamein, listening to a Grant tank engine idle beneath a structure built to look exactly like a 3-ton supply lorry. The desert cold bit through his overalls before the sun burned it away by 7. 900 tanks were hidden this way across the northern sector that night, disguised as trucks, while dummy tanks built from plywood and canvas sat motionless where the real armor should have been. The Germans called the entire British deception apparatus Old Faithful, a resigned, almost admiring nickname for a trick they suspected but could never fully unravel. When the barrage opened at 21:40 hours on October 23rd, German artillery spent the first 90 minutes shelling an empty stretch of desert 8 kilometers from the real point of attack. Not one German reconnaissance photograph taken in the preceding 6 weeks correctly identified the location of 8th Army's main armoured strike force. On paper, German assessment of British deception capability was not arrogance. It was informed skepticism built on a genuine numerical advantage in aerial reconnaissance. The Luftwaffe's Aufklärungsgruppe units flying over the Alamein line carried RB-50/30 cameras capable of resolving objects as small as half a meter from an altitude of 4,000 meters. German photo interpretation officers at Fliegerführer Africa had, by October 1942, built a meticulous order of battle map through daily sorties, cross-referencing vehicle counts, track patterns, and supply dump locations with signals intelligence from the Hochdienst Intercept Service. Erwin Rommel's own intelligence chief, Major Friedrich von Mellenthin, had correctly identified in September that any British offensive would require a concentration of at least 2 armoured divisions, and German doctrine held that a force of that size, some 1,000 tanks, 900 field guns, and the fuel and water to sustain them, simply could not be hidden. Panzer Army Africa's engineers had calculated that a single armoured division at rest required approximately 350 cubic metres of daily water resupply, generating vehicle and track patterns no camouflage netting could conceal from a trained eye at altitude. German General Staff assessments dated as late as October 20th still placed the main British armoured concentration in the northern sector, precisely where doctrine said logic demanded it be. Every technical indicator, every doctrinal manual, every proving ground study on camouflage detection said the same thing. An army of this size could not vanish, and for 6 weeks it did not. They were right about the cameras. They were completely wrong about the eye that read what the cameras saw. German reconnaissance never lost the ability to photograph the desert in perfect resolution. That instrument never failed, once. What failed was the assumption that a tank always looks like a tank and a lorry always looks like a lorry. Nobody in German intelligence had quantified the variable of disguised silhouette at scale. The idea that an entire division's worth of armor could be dressed individually, vehicle by vehicle, in false skins overnight, and that the false skins themselves could be removed and refitted in under 4 minutes by 2 men. It was not concealment, it was substitution. The desert kept sending back the same photographs it always had. The men reading them simply stopped seeing what was actually there. The Sunshield program itself, engineered under Lieutenant Colonel Peter Buckley of the Royal Engineers Camouflage Directorate, fitted collapsible canvas and tubular steel frames over Grant and Sherman tanks, transforming their profile into that of a 3-ton Bedford lorry from any observation angle above 15 degrees. Each unit weighed approximately 90 kilograms and could be struck by a 2-man crew in under 4 minutes when the order to advance came. In the sector held by 1st Armoured Division on the night of October 23rd, War Diary entries from the Queen's Bay's record trooper Alan Whitfield, spending 11 consecutive hours resecuring sunshield canvas that had torn loose in a sandstorm, working by feel in total blackout because a torch beam risked revealing the entire deception to German patrols less than 400 meters away. The regimental war diary held at the National Archives under W0169/4463 notes the canvas was patched using strips cut from a spare ground sheet, stitched with boot repair thread because no other material was available forward of brigade stores. Simultaneously, in the southern Decoy sector, sappers of 8th Army's camouflage units were completing the dummy pipeline deception, laying 5-kilometer stretches of fake piping constructed from petrol tins, at a rate calibrated to convince German aerial observers that a genuine water pipeline, and therefore a genuine offensive, was being built to support an attack in the south that would not arrive for another 2 weeks. Royal Engineers Sergeant Thomas Rigby recorded in a field message preserved in the Imperial War Museum's private papers collection, reference IWM documents.11409, that his squad buried real petrol tins, joint by joint, so the shadow line reads true from 3,000 feet, timing the construction to advance at the exact daily rate a genuine pipeline would take, so that photo interpreters measuring progress day over day would see a believable curve. At the second engagement, on the night of the actual breakthrough, 2nd Rifle Brigade held the northern minefield corridor codenamed January, tasked with marking safe lanes through cleared ground using hooded lamps visible only from ground level, never from the air. Rifleman Douglas Kent, according to the battalion war diary held at the National Archives under WO 169/4881, crawled the final 200 metres of the marked lane on his stomach after his lamp bracket sheared, counting the taped aiming stakes by touch in complete darkness to confirm the lane's width matched the tank formation's turning radius, because a single lane 6 inches too narrow would have funneled the entire armoured brigade into a minefield still live. Post-battle ground inspection by Royal Engineers clearance teams on October 24th confirmed the corridor held its calibrated width along its full 3,000-metre length, and that 22nd Armoured Brigade passed through without a single mine strike in the lane itself. Oberleutnant Hans Reinecker, a reconnaissance officer of Aufklärungsgruppe 121, was captured near Tel El Akakir on November 2, 1942, and interrogated by 8th Army Intelligence 3 days later. He told his interrogators, according to the captured personnel report summarized in Panzer Army Africa's own post-action assessment, that his squadron's photographs throughout September and October had shown the same static dispositions, week after week, and that neither he nor his interpretation officers had ever suspected the northern tank concentration was assembling beneath their own cameras, disguised as the supply columns they had already logged and dismissed as unremarkable. He described the opening barrage as arriving from a direction the map said was empty, an 8-kilometre error that cost the defending artillery its ability to range correctly for the first critical hour. Trooper Whitfield's own diary entry, written the same week and held in the Queen's Bay's Regimental Archive, answers him without ever having heard him. He wrote only that the sunshields held, and that when the order came to strike them, the lorries became tanks in 4 minutes, and nobody outside heard a thing. Battles are not won by the side with the better camera, they are won by the side that understands what the camera cannot be trusted to interpret alone. 8th Army did not outbuild German reconnaissance technology, and never tried to. It built a deception a tired, sand-blinded corporal could execute correctly in the dark with 2 hands and a stopwatch, replicated 900 times across a battlefield, holding under sandstorms, patrol contact, and total blackout, because the men executing it understood the disguise better than the men flying over it ever would. Faithful, the Germans called it, and faithful in the end was exactly the word for the trick that never once broke.